Thank you very much and welcome. And I'm so happy to have Vince Schubert with me. Um, I'm very happy to say that I feel that Vince is my friend. And Vince, he's one of those guys um, that has realized the things about awakening and has basically you came backwards into all of it. He saw through self, and years later he went into LU, and now he's guiding in LU. And it is Vince that has the meeting that I'm keep recommending in every single video I have. I'm recommending to join Vince's Sunday meeting that he has bi-monthly, and this is Vince. So I know that you didn't see through self and you didn't do the Fetter work, like in small, neat boxes. So what I would like to do with this interview today is kind of standing and looking in retrospect on the insights that you have had and see how those fit into the different Fetter boxes. So that's the idea of it. Let me just get the questions up. First of all, before we start, I obviously would like to hear your story, how you started the process and how you came to see through self.
Okay. A short version?
Go on. I haven't got a back stuff. You just knock yourself out.
Well, first thing I have to say, I recognize that memory is faulty. It's a construction. So my memory of what happened has obviously changed over the time, even if we try and keep it authentic. This is always a good question. When did it start? Probably when I was still in my mummy's belly, but certainly by the time I was a self-aware child, I was miserable a lot of the time. And that was because right from the beginning, as far back as I can remember, I felt different. I didn't feel like a normal person. So I imagine that that's where it started. And by the time I'd experienced primary school, I was already somewhat of a isolationist. I kept to myself, read a lot, lots and lots, read lots and lots and lots. Read, I don't know when it was, but I know at one point, certainly at high school, I was reading a book a day, every day. So I could get through 7 or more books in a week, and I couldn't get enough of them. But obviously I was escaping. That was where my new world was. It was in my head, because the real world was not a pleasant place to be. But when I look back, of course, I wasn't deprived of anything. I had a good upbringing. I had caring parents, even though I didn't think my father was at the time. My mother certainly was. So I wouldn't say I was, I would say in the beginning I felt abnormal and spent a lot of time wanting to be normal. I can remember that I wanted to be normal. I can remember looking in the mirror as an adolescent, and I can't remember whether I was actually crying or close to tears, but it was all about not having a square chin and a dimple like Superman did, and like a lot of other kids did, especially those handsome ones, But anyway, that's probably where things started. But I would say my official searching didn't start until after I was married at 21, thereabouts, when I started I got into religion. Actually, I probably, before I got into religion, or around about the same time, I got into pot as well. So it was
What a
a
great
long
combo.
time ago.
What a great
Yeah.
combo,
Well, that
religion and pot.
I don't know whether it was the subculture or the pot itself that a lot of questioning was happening at that stage. A lot of questioning about the status quo. Anyway, so I went through a couple of years of religion. I became a Baha'i. I had already had my experience as a Christian as a child, and that wasn't a great outcome.
Vince,
So I thought, but I thought
Vince,
Baha'is might
I'm
just get
sorry. I'm
there.
sorry to interrupt. You have to explain what is a Baha'i. I don't know what that is.
It's just another religion, Middle Eastern. I guess their prophet. I imagine you call him a prophet is Baha'u'llah. But they had as a central tenet of their religion that women should be running the show, not men. And it had great promise in theory. Turned out a year or 18 months later, I recognized the hypocrisy was the same there as in the Christian religion. So I gave that one a miss. And I got into all sorts of things. So I guess when I look back, I got into naturopathy at that point because I was looking to be healthier myself, and I did that. I worked with a chiropractor as a naturopath for 18 months, and went to uni at that point, doing psychology, and became a hypnotherapist, started doing hypnotherapy, and actually did that for 5 years full time. That was pretty rewarding time, that one. Had to stop that in the end. My marriage was breaking up because I was getting too involved with patients, and that wasn't a good mix. So that ended up stopping. But in the meantime, I'd been through lots and lots of therapies of different kinds, Gestalt therapy, and a big one for me was encounter groups. I did lots of encounter groups, and I did so many encounter groups, and in the end I was running them. And that went on for quite some time, probably 3 years of doing encounter groups. So pretty intensive shadow work stuff happening there. But the search went on, and I went through a period. Towards the end, I went through a period with the non-dualists, the Advaita people. I just ended up being very frustrated with them, but they did give me one really positive thing, and that was that it became clear that it was possible for a so-called ordinary person to become enlightened. At that point, I was still using the word enlightenment, which I don't anymore. So I didn't wake up with them, but I got close, so close that in fact I started a blog. I felt it was imminent that it would happen, that I would wake up, and I started a blog called On the Verge. And I did a daily journal in that with stuff relating to searching. And as it turned out, that was 12 months before it actually happened. So when it actually happened, my wife was caring for her sister in Melbourne, which was about an 11-hour drive away from where we lived. And she was staying down there full time caring. She had breast cancer and was terminal with it. And I would go down and visit. And when I did, I would stay in our caravan, which was set up in the front yard. And anyway, I was sleeping in the caravan, and having lots of time on my hands, doing lots of internet searching. And would you believe I searched that internet? I got really good at searching it, and I could hardly find anything on what I was after, just like it wasn't there, which is absolutely crazy, because after a while I had so much information off the internet that you couldn't believe it. I was swamped in it. But when I was looking before that, I couldn't find it. Anyway, I came across a bloke in America. Eric Gross was his name. And he wanted some money to have a conversation with him. I had a Skype conversation with him and paid him $50 to have that conversation. And the only thing I actually remember about that conversation was the sentence that changed my world. And that was, he said, "Vince, the mosquito bite of seeking is never, ever going to heal while you keep scratching it." I just got jaw dropped at that. That changed my world. That's one sentence. I suddenly realized that this is it. This, whatever it is, whatever this is, it's it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What am I doing looking for some imaginary outside of this? Something that didn't exist. It was this, and it was, don't fight it. For Christ's sake, why don't fight it? It's this. There's nothing to do except nothing. Absolutely nothing. I did have. It's funny, even looking back at my blog, I don't have an exact moment when he told me that sentence. I don't think it happened as he told me. I think it was cogitating on the sentence that caused it to happen, because I've got a blur of a day or two there where I don't really know. But I do remember getting out of the caravan and walking down the street and having this weird sensation where the ground came up to meet my feet. So they came together as I walked. The ground was complicit in my walking. It was amazing. And the trees, the big trees on the sidewalk in Melbourne, great big plane trees, those trees were intimate with me. I don't know quite how to put this, but they were not separate. It was almost as if I was breathing them in and out again as I was doing this crazy walk. But that, having that little memory of that is, I didn't have bells and whistles. I mean, I didn't even call them bells and whistles, although looking back, they probably were a bit that way. So it wasn't, here I was going, wow, this is it. Wow. And life certainly seemed different for me then. But interestingly, when I look back on it, I was still doing enough searching. I suspect that Fetter 2 crept in almost immediately, and I was having doubts. This can't be it. This is just too, I won't say ordinary, too normal.
I was about to say ordinary. I was about to say ordinary.
Yeah. Well, things weren't ordinary anymore, but a lot was, but things, I got flashes of things all the time that weren't. But yeah, anyway, but I was still looking on the internet, and I came across for the first time, and this was probably just a week later, maybe, or not even a week later, I came across Liberation Unleashed. And I went, oh wow, this is synchronicity. Here I was looking for this stuff for years and years, and I couldn't find it. And all of a sudden, when I don't need it anymore, there it is. But anyway, they can confirm whether it's really happened for me or not by reading the stuff I was reading there. I figured they would know. Little did I realise that LU had only been going a week too at that point.
Really?
Yes, they had only just started. So anyway, I fronted up there, and the two women that had started it, Ilona and good heavens, I've forgotten her name now. I know it. But anyway, some other bloke that was there. I remember him. James was his name. He put me through the 3rd degree. And he kept asking me this convoluted question that was, in experiencing, is there an experiencer or the experienced? And it was obvious to me that there was only experiencing. There was no experiencer or experience. Now, I don't know how I came to that conclusion. It was just obvious. Mm. And of course, the question that they ask is there a self that exists? And I hadn't thought of that before either. But once again, it was really obvious that there wasn't a self, or rather, I didn't know whether there was a self. But what I knew, what was there, was stories, lots and lots of stories about Vince, what he liked, what he didn't like, what he looked like, what he felt. All these things were there, and that was obvious. That's what I had been responding to for all of my life. So the no self was obvious by omission rather than by not finding it. So anyway, the no self thing didn't even seem to be a big deal for me, and I couldn't quite understand why Liberation Unleashed was focused on it. Now, of course, I realise it's the first fetter, but I didn't at the time. Now, doubts probably came and went, but I do remember an incident where I lost it about 3 months in, I think. And that incident, I don't ever actually remember what the incident is. I could look it up. It's on my blog, but that was a major expression of doubt for sure. And I suspect the doubt went on for a couple of months, probably from about 3 to 6 or 3 to 9 months in. There were doubts, but I don't remember anything as cliche as me saying, if there's no self, how can there be doubts? Doubts are only thoughts. I don't remember any of that, but I got over them somehow. I don't remember the details of how I got over them, but I wasn't concerned about whether it had happened or not. Probably about a year afterwards, it was just I'd settled into it at that stage. I need to say also that once I was accepted at Liberation Unleashed, which just took a few days, I started guiding straight away. And of course, I guided from how I would put it, without wanting to sound superior or anything like that, but I was guiding from innate wisdom. So I didn't have any formulation. I didn't have any techniques. I didn't read any of the guiding stuff at LU. I was guiding from my experience, and getting great results. Lots and lots of people were getting through the gate as a result of it. Even though, really interestingly, getting through the gate at LU was them convincing me and other guides in the end that they recognized that there was no self. It worked. It happened like that. So I guided for probably about 3 years, and I'm just plucking these figures because I'm not exactly sure. Where the normal thing would be to go to the gate and find somebody who's waiting, and there was always somebody waiting at the gate, and pick one of them and work with them. Well, somehow or other, it turned out that some other guide said, I've got somebody here that I'm about to give up on. I just can't get them through. We've been working hard. And so I said, well, let me have a try. And I really enjoyed that. That made me dig deeper into myself than any of the ones before that. And I got off on that one. So every time somebody came up with somebody difficult, I put my hand up. And in the end, I was basically just dealing with people that were difficult. And I must say, not all of them got through. Some dropped out. I can even remember one lady that stayed with me for well over 30 pages of back and forth at LU, and in the end just gave up. And I've got one lady now who's been with me for so many years I don't remember, and it's exactly that situation. I'm really looking forward to you meeting her.
Yeah.
She's got it all together, knows it all, but still hasn't had that shift. Yeah. So I don't know if there's more to my story that you're interested in, but that's kind of it.
I got so many things just on that. I have so many things to ask you. The first thing I want to ask you is that you said that you were before you had that conversation where the penny really dropped. You said that you were seeking and you were seeking, you were looking. What was it you were looking for? Did you have that like clear in your mind what it was you were actually looking for?
No,
No.
I, it's easy to introduce mythology here. I, I, no, it was enlightenment I was looking for
Mm,
somehow or other in my early days, and perhaps that had something to do with the pot in the early days as well. That there was this alternative view of the world available called enlightenment, where people just felt great and didn't suffer, and so on and so on.
mm,
Um, my daily life, I can remember back then. So when my kids were young, I my wife and I would have a fight every day, usually over money or how to discipline or not discipline the kids and so on. And so it was a daily occurrence for me to be yelling and ranting and raving uh, in extreme frustration about things not being the way I wanted them to be or whatever. Um, and I guess I was looking to alleviate that. I didn't call it suffering back then, but I recognize it now as suffering. So that searching was very definitely a way out of an unpleasant world into what I imagined would be a pleasant world. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. The other two questions, I think I'm gonna wait until we come to further down the line. I would like to ask you now, and that's one of the questions that I have written down here. How you view the separate self and its role in life, from where you're at now. How do you view the separate self
Yes. Yep. Yep.
now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, we're talking 11 years or a bit more later, having lived like this, and I find the term separate self funny
Yes.
because the term implies that there exists a separate self, or then people turn around and say, oh, it's no self. There's no self. And they talk about that like it exists as something.
Exactly. The absence of it makes it exist. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of just doesn't work for me. So what I see is what I see in myself is a lot of habits, a lot of automatic responses, and if I look at any of them, if I pick one to look at, it comes back to these beliefs I have about Vince. Well, we get into funny areas here with language. So what I see is a self that's not actual, but rather is a role. And I got into this one a couple of days ago with somebody I'm guiding, and it's a big one too. He said, I recognize that myself at work is different to myself at home, is different to myself out with the boys, etc. And he said, and I wonder which is the real self. Oh, and I just couldn't. Okay. So we have these roles. Of course, we have these roles. I'm different with my dog than I am with a stranger. I'm different when I'm eating than when I'm not eating, or whatever. So we have all these, I would call them roles, for want of a better word, and they are, when we put them on and take them off like a coat, according to the weather, according to the need. And it's laughable to think that any one of them is real or actual. What they are convenient behaviors to suit the circumstances. And we all do that, and we all do it all the time, and it's fine. We do it automatically. And it depends a whole lot on our genes and our history, our conditioning, because of what I went through as a kid. It was important for me to be liked. I wanted to be liked, and I've discovered all sorts of things that I say and do to be liked. Even now, that still happens. It's just that I don't care if it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, but so that self that you ask about, if that's your question, I'm not quite sure about that, but that self is just a convenient.
I love that convenient
Yeah.
behavior to suit the circumstances. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really, really love that.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because it's easy. My mind does these things. It's interesting to say, I don't do that on purpose. I don't adopt a role. I don't have a script or anything like that I pull out and act out under this for these circumstances or that. It just happens automatically. And it happens automatically because of habits and because of conditioning and because of, I guess, my DNA. I don't know about that one. So I one thing I haven't mentioned, and I probably, it just comes to mind now, is that I revel in the not needing to know facts. Information is just information. And it might or might not be accurate, but mostly it's irrelevant to me. I can adopt it as part of my present life. If I watch the news and I see something terrible, I can feel sad or angry about that, but it's not really to do with me. It's just something I hook into. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. Thank you so much. I have some more questions about the first fetter. I'm curious which part you used to identify with that you no longer identify with. I understand what you mean with the different suits that you take on in the different things, but did you have something which you really identified with, like like
Yes.
yeah,
I
okay, go on.
understand what you're saying. Yeah. We also have a suit that we put on when we're alone, when we're by ourselves and we're alone, and that suit was uncomfortable. That's why I started seeking, I guess. I was dissatisfied with who I was, or who I thought I was.
Yeah.
How I felt, how I felt was what drove it. Yeah. So that suit that we put on when we're by ourselves, I guess, is the identity that we believe we are, that we respond to. And as I say this, it's really, really obvious that, you know, those beliefs that are involved in that particular suit are what we respond to. And so it's so easy to see how I was creating my own suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got a reminder about our meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Todd's, yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that that analogy with that we have suits that we take on, like the one you're guiding that says that he's in one suit when he's working and another suit when he's with the boys. And you're completely right. There's a suit that we take on when we are alone with ourselves, and that is where the underlying belief is. Yeah. I'm segueing into the second fetter, because second fetter is about doubt. And I'm segueing into it because right now I'm sitting and creating the material for the awakening curriculum about doubt, about the second fetter. And I made a video today where I'm talking about that the foundation of doubt, the reason that doubt can even happen, is that we have an underlying belief about something. That there's that underlying belief, and that is in discourse with our experience, and that is when doubt is happening. And I really love what you say with that suit that we take on when we're alone, because if that suit is created by conditioning or by trauma or by shadow or by anything like that, then doubt will be really, really prevalent. It will be like a huge issue. So yeah. And then I'm thinking to what you talked about before, where you said that that doubt used to be a really, really big one. Do you know what the underlying belief was about? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I don't have a memory of recognizing a fundamental belief with doubt, and the a frequently used rebuff for doubt is that they're only thoughts, and I don't remember having that one either. I suspect, looking back, and maybe I'm making this up, but I suspect that the doubt was to do with, here's an interesting paradox, was to do with self-worth.
Mm.
And it was like, I'm not worthy of being enlightened, or that's something along those lines, perhaps. Yeah. But I have to admit here, my memory is so vague that I could be totally fabricating the whole thing.
Yeah. No, but it's very, because my experience is not that doubt is about thoughts, because that's just the skeptical doubt. You know, the skeptical doubt is like that higher or over layer of doubt that we can have, where we make it into something very cerebral, and we're skeptical to what we are seeing, and not really, you know, but that is more like that cerebral thing. But the underlying belief that we can have, for example, an underlying belief of I'm not worthy, that is not a thought. That is not a thought. That is like a deep seated belief that we're not even aware is there. The starting point of me not being worthy is the starting point in every endeavor. Everything I do in my life, that is the starting point. And I might not even be aware that it's a starting point. I might not even be aware that it is a belief. But that underlying belief is the reason to the doubt. That's the reason why I, for example, like you were saying, would not be able to trust that I actually was awake, because who am I to be awake, you know?
Yeah. I would have to say, if my memory is accurate, that doubt arrived as a feeling for me, not as a thought. It
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
arrive saying, you haven't got it or anything. It was a feeling that, no,
Exactly.
this can't be it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly my point that I'm also making in the material, that doubt is not a thought. It's a feeling. It's a feeling or an emotion, because it's that underlying belief that we have in something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So may I ask you, what do you no longer doubt?
You have to forgive. Look, I still feel like this mind is not in sync with most of the world. and when you say that, the paradox jumped out and slapped me on the face.
Tell me
How
about
is
it.
it possible for me to know what I don't doubt? I, I have no idea what I don't doubt. Look, I don't. Well, gee, I'm thinking about it as I say this, and I immediately think maybe I'm not right about this. I was going to say I don't even once a day say to myself, Vince, you're awake. It just doesn't happen.
No.
But when I thought to say that, up come another little bit that said, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's and it may not be in words. It may be just that, and this is a tricky one. I don't talk about this stuff with my daily compatriots in life, my wife and friends. My wife thinks this is a lot of rubbish, and my friends don't know about it, basically. I forgot what I was going to say now. That was a lead into something, and I've
What do you no
forgotten it.
longer doubt? My question
Yeah.
was, what do you no longer doubt?
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. What I was going to say was that if I if I if it happens that up pops a comparison between me and others, me and other people, then of course I can say I'm not actually pointing to a particular situation with other people where I might say I can easily see how they're causing their own suffering with this, the way they think about this. And I can, but that's just a background noise, that one. I do almost always ask myself, if a comparison happens, whether or not I'm feeling superior, or I'm feeling special, or I'm feeling better than them. And I guess that comes up because I do. I do feel luckier. I do feel that I have an advantage with this way of looking at the world and people that they don't have. But I don't feel better than or superior. That's, if anything, I feel some sadness and a lot of these things only happen when I think about it. So a lot of the time I'm not thinking about it, so it's not happening. But if for example, I had a conversation with my wife just last night. This was an interesting conversation about how parents feel when their kids are in trouble. and luckily my kids are not in trouble, but I've got a friend who's got an alcoholic daughter, and his life is miserable because of her daughter, and she doesn't even live with him, you know, but she's there having her own trouble. And my wife said, of course you'll feel sad and bad when your kids are in trouble. And I'm trying to say to her, you don't have to. If you accept the situation that you recognize you can't change, you don't have to feel sad and bad about it. And she's saying, well, that would make you a cold-hearted prick, wouldn't it? And I'm saying, no, I'm not feeling, I'm not closing my heart off to them. I can still feel sadness for the situation, but when I recognize I can't change it, when I accept it, then I don't suffer anymore. Well, the response was, you know, you're talking shit, Vince, you know.
Yeah.
You're
It's
going to feel that. You've got
yeah.
to feel that. It's your job to feel that. Was almost, this is actually part of what waking up is all about, realizing it's not my job to feel bad because my kids are in trouble. I want to help them, of course.
It's such a good point, and it's actually something that I would like to talk about when we come to the ninth fetter, because the ninth fetter is about flow and synchronicity and understanding that every unfolding that is happening is part of an unfolding that nobody controls. And also it's also
Yeah.
about having that insight that no matter what we go through in life, everything is useful. So if you're an alcoholic, that might be exactly what you need to become awake. It might be exactly the type of suffering that puts you in a situation so you all of a sudden have, wake up, have that snap out of it and go like, oh my God, I used to believe that.
Yep.
Now I see that it's just mind-made, all of it. And who are we to know that it's not alcoholism that is leading that woman to that insight? So it's simply just acknowledging that there are things that we cannot control, and we cannot even judge it to be good or bad. It just is.
Yep.
It just is.
Yeah. I had one the other day that referred to this. It was interesting, and I don't remember the exact circumstances that brought it up, but I think I said to somebody, who are you to rob them of their suffering? That might be exactly what they need to wake up. Yeah. And in fact, I was guiding somebody last night, and she said, oh, I've been a bit down all day. And my response was, well, great, fantastic.
Right, exactly.
That's an opportunity, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh God, I've done that.
She'll know what I mean. She will. Yeah.
Oh, I've done that so many times. Oh, that's amazing. You feel horrendous. I'm so happy to hear. It's a great place to be. Yeah. Oh, amazing. I have a question here in the third fetter where I'm asking, how did you realize that there's no free will and that you have no control? And it's touching a bit on what we just talked about. But I would like to hear your experience with that.
Yeah, it actually extends in the other direction as well. The control thing was easy, but it was also an epiphany that happened to me. And a lot later, it was I don't remember in the early days that control came up even at all. But anyway, I had this realization, and I don't remember where it came from. I presume I would have read it somewhere, or I don't know. But anyway, the realization was this. Take something like as simple as me sitting here talking to you, okay? What's required to enable that to have happened? right? It's lots of things, absolutely lots of things. I needed to have this technology. I needed to have it. Just it goes back, and then I can go back and I can jump back and say, one of the things that was important for me this to be able to happen was that I was born. Yeah, if my parents didn't have sex 9 months before I was born, this wouldn't be happening. In fact, that one night was critical to this happening. That very moment that happened, that fertilization occurred, is absolutely critical to this everything right now. And then I can, of course, jump back and go, hang on, their parents also need it, and their parents and their parents, and then I go, and if I end up going back to caveman times,
Big Bang.
the fact that they didn't actually starve to death, that so the food that they ate, being where it was when it was just as critical as something as recent as me having the technology to do this. And it can spread out, it can go out into every direction, so that there's not a single thing that's ever happened in the whole of existence since the time of existence, if there is such a thing, that had to happen exactly the way it did happen, for me to be able to be here doing this like this.
Yes.
So that I forget what your original question
No,
was.
no,
Was
I
that
love it. I love it.
separation?
Please go on, go on. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I asked you about free will and no control.
Oh, okay. The control thing. So well, control can't even fit into a scenario like that.
It's so delusional.
And it's it's mind-boggling. And so in that realization, for me, I call that my realization of oneness as well. I realized, how can I possibly be separate from any of this? And that can include one single speck of stardust orbiting the moon or the sun or Saturn or something right now. That is still has to be exactly where it is, doing exactly what it is, for this to be happening. So it's everything. It's everything. There's nothing separate. And then, of course, you can jump back and you can and you can confirm these things with current scientific things, and you can say, well, way back, Einstein discovered entanglement. Wow, what a blowout that was. How can we be separate if you can get one cell here and one cell on the other side of the world, and when this one's affected, the other one gets affected, no matter where it is, no matter how far away it is, it also responds to what happens to this one. Wow, how can anything be separate when that's happening?
Yeah.
So that's a logical conclusion, but the feeling that came up as I went through this, whoa, even that single blade of grain on the end of a stick of grass next to the dinosaur had to be exactly there, waving in the way it did in the wind, exactly that way, for this to be happening.
Yeah.
What a blowout that is, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. I absolutely love it, Vince. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, we're moving forward to the fourth fetter. And the fourth fetter is about desire. It's all the things that we want. And it's paired with the fifth fetter, which is about ill will, all the things that we don't want. So those two are together because you have that pull, something you really want, and the push, something you really don't want. And the antidote to desire and ill will is contentment. It's feeling into that push pull that you have, it's completely mind made, and there is a more profound contentment alive all the time. So my question to you is, I would like to hear a story about something you used to strive for that you no longer regard as important.
be liked,
Mm.
is what comes to mind. There was definite striving for that. I even saw, as a response to what somebody said to me once, many years ago, I don't know how many years ago, and they said something like, you start to talk like the person you're talking to after a while. They noticed that in me. And when they said that, I noticed that it was true. I did. So if I'm speaking to somebody with an accent or somebody that talks in a particular way, what I find myself doing is adopting that fairly quickly. So that was the extent to which I wanted to be liked back then. And it probably hasn't changed in that way. I still want to be liked, but now I don't care if it happens or not. I don't care. I mean, I also recognize. You want another story?
Yes, yes,
Here's
always.
here's oh, good one. Okay, so this one I use a lot when I'm guiding, and I got an interesting response to this from a person I'm guiding at the moment. And that is this, that I use the koan: if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there, does it make a sound? And that's a segue into, it's a rhetorical question. But I do want them to consider it. It's a segue into the fact that sound is something it's not in nature. Sound, there is air vibrating at a frequency that can stimulate our eardrum and the processes in our skull and so on, in order to generate a nerve impulse that goes to my brain, to a particular part, to the part of my brain that handles sound. Well, that's a staging point, because from there it immediately shunts it off into other places as well. But when it reaches that sound part of the brain, I experience a sound. And it's absolutely amazing when you think about it. Not only do I experience a sound, but because I have two ears and they're just that far apart, I can triangulate where that vibrating air originated, and I can imagine that that's the spot where the sound came from. And this is a clue. This is the important thing. I imagine that that's the spot. I read another article that highlights this particular point, and that is that if you cut your finger, you feel the pain in your finger, but not because that's where the pain is, but because that's where the brain thinks the pain is. Mm. So the brain projects the location of that injury and gives you the experience of pain happening there, but it's all happening in the brain. So every sense, whether it be hearing, seeing, touching, their main ones.
I just need
Every
to stop you.
sense.
I just need to cough. Just
Yes, okay. I'm watching you do that.
I'm back. I just had some kind of cold or something. So when I speak, then I start to cough. So I'm back. Go on.
Yeah. So the biology backs this up, experience backs this up, and that is that every single thing that I experience that I think is coming in through my senses, one of my sense organs, I think it's happening at the point of my sense organ being stimulated. If I touch something, I think it's there. If I smell something, I think it's there. If I taste something, I think it's there. If I see something, I think it's there. But that's an illusion. You know, biology teaches us that it's actually the center of the brain for seeing, where the experience of seeing occurs. And in order to navigate in the world, the brain, just fucking amazing organ, the brain projects things in order for you to walk around them and not into them and whatever. Just absolutely amazing. Anyway, my point is, everything I experience happens here. And I think it's there. I mean, the the response that I got was from the client I'm guiding last night. The response came back almost immediately when I did my post, saying, "Isn't the brain something we imagine?" So that's going to be an interesting one, that one, because they're right, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so the people don't seem to, you can explain this one to people and they don't seem to get the ramifications of it. If everything that I experience is actually happening in my brain, then the whole world is happening in my brain, and everybody in it is happening in my brain. And that's where the mind boggle hits. How can it be? How can it be that everything is? And then you can jump back to quantum science again, and you can go, perhaps it doesn't even come into existence until I think about it, until I focus on it. And then I go, okay, what do you mean focus on it? Well, I put my visual acuity on it, or I can touch it, or what, and I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. And then I'm going, and that's, how obvious is it that it's all in here?
Yeah.
It doesn't exist if I don't think about it. And then I can think, wow, look, I'm an old man and I've got a pretty, I don't know, I wouldn't say severe, but I've got a pretty pronounced case of tinnitus in my ears. I wear hearing aids and I've got this tinnitus. But, I don't know that I've got the tinnitus unless I stop and think about it. As soon as I say the word tinnitus, I can hear it. If I'm not thinking about it, I'm not saying it, it's not there. Now, I wrote, and this is the big one for most people that I'm guiding, getting them across. So my mind can jump into a rabbit hole that says, logically, it is there all the time.
Yes. And
you're just not focused on it and therefore you're not aware of it. Well, who cares? Who cares? My experience is that it's not there unless I think about it. What is actual doesn't matter. What is actual is my experience. So logic is just a way of taking us away from what's going on. Mm. It's a furphy, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
So it's handy. Logic is handy, but it's not perfect. In fact, it's very far from perfect.
Yeah, and also in many cases,
and recognizing this, I can use it if I need it. Sorry.
Yeah, and also, acknowledging that it's not always useful, because it is.
Oh, absolutely.
It is like that. Yes, you don't have tinnitus unless you pull it into your awareness, and then you have tinnitus. But that knowledge is not really useful, because the fact of the matter is that your experience of having tinnitus is only happening when it's in your awareness. So it's like, it's not really lead. It's like knowledge, like you said about knowledge, that and information that is not really leading to anywhere. So it's not really useful.
Well, confusion.
Yeah, exactly.
Or suffering.
Mm?
Suffering it will come from the misapplication of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard in words to get across that this is mostly about feeling. And then I say feeling, and I start to think, well, it's sensations, but it's not. It's like saying emotions are sensations, and it's true they are. But you can't pinpoint them, because an emotion is kind of diffused and it's everywhere, and it's all encompassing and so on. Whereas a sensation, we can pinpoint it to a narrow thing, but there still is their sensations. And so what all of this stuff is about, that feeling that happens when we think something. And the biggest example, the best is when we think something about ourself that makes us feel good. That feeling, that ownership of a compliment, or of a ego enhancement, that ownership feeling, that's the crux of everything.
Yeah.
That was pretty vague, I know, but it's pretty hard
No, I get it. Because it's part of that striving for something which is not even factual, but it's like you said, that you used to have that striving for people to like you, which is completely illusory, because even if people like you, you never know if they like you for what you want them to like you for. It's like like so far out that we cannot even begin to unpack that one.
Right. Yeah. Well, that brings me back to I did what I forgot to finish on the previous story. It was when you just reminded me of that, and that was that if the whole world is emanating from my brain, if it's what is actually out there, an insect will see totally different to what a human sees, and a dog will see it differently, and everybody sees it differently. And what I perceive is different to the person sitting next to me, what they perceive. So recognizing that there is a unique perception of everything that's going on that originates from the perceiver that doesn't actually exist, but anyway. How can I be upset when somebody feels something about me? Because it's obviously coming from them, So it's like absolutely no impetus to care about what others think. That's, if they want to express it, that's just going to tell me about them. It's not going to tell me about me.
Exactly. It can never ever be about you. It can only be about their perception of their reflection of thoughts from their experiences that they project into you. It can never ever be about you. Can never ever be
well,
about
it can be in this sense, and that's another really interesting one, and that is, of course, my perception of them I have to own. And if my perception of them is their perception of me being inaccurate or a personal thing on them, I'm still actually projecting that out onto them.
Yeah.
So in that way, it is about me. And what can it? So I'm having an interchange with some arsehole who's going at me 100 miles an hour, and I've got to ask myself,
who's the asshole?
why did I do this? What
Yeah,
am I
who's the
doing?
asshole? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's that one is it's so important when we talk about the fourth and the fifth fetter, where it's ill will and desire, all the things you want and all the things you don't want. This one about really realizing that that bubble of reality that we live in, it has mirrors on the inside. You know, whatever I perceive about you, it's all about me. It can only ever be
Yeah,
about
yeah.
me, you know?
There's
Um,
an old Gestalt therapy one that says one finger pointing at you and three fingers pointing back at me.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I remember back, when I heard that one, I must have been a child or something like that. That was when I really realized the part that the bubble of reality that we have around us, it has mirrors on the inside. That there is no one but me in that bubble of reality, and everything I see in others is just a reflection of myself. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's the amazing thing is here, you can this is so that's just so beautiful and so right. But you can get somebody who we might label a pessimist and somebody who we might label an optimist and have them both look at exactly that. And one of them will get depressed and go into a form of nihilism or depression or something. And the other one will go, wow, freedom, freedom.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same thing they're looking at. So again, it comes back to that feeling of what our connection, our relating to what it is that's out there. So the same person that came back that I'm guiding that came back with about the brain thing, ended up the previous session there. The last thing they said in their post was, oh, so I'm just living in my own little world, am I? And didn't have the perspective of the freedom that is
No.
that amazing thing about responsibility and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. Thank you. Um, I have a question to you about the ill will and annoyance and anger and all of that. What used to annoy you the most that no longer seems important or relevant?
Um, this is an interesting one. I I I don't know that one. I don't have an answer. I can't think of something that fits that. But what does come up is that it still happens.
Oh, it
Um,
does. It does.
yes. So there's still triggering almost exclusively with my wife, but I got
Isn't
I
she a
got
fortunate
triggered by
one?
my daughter a week ago. Yeah. And what's really interesting about this one, it's a little bit of a diversion, and that is that that daily thing doesn't, this now happens occasionally rather than daily like it used to back when. Um, but ever since 2011, that's got less and less, and I'm over it quicker and whatever. And for as long as I can remember, the attitude, the feeling that has come up when it happens is not this shouldn't be happening or whatever. It's, oh, it happened again. Just, but what I'm saying is there was no apparent suffering now, which begs the question, is it possible to suffer if you don't know you're suffering? I don't know the answer to that. But anyway, because there was total acceptance of what came up, there was just no suffering. So I figured, I'm I'm there. You're not allowed to say that, are you? But anyway, um, until the Fetter work came along, and then somebody said, "Oh no, if you're being triggered, there's still work to do there." Yeah, so seeking kind of started up again for a moment, and then it became something else, quite pleasant and enjoyable. But anyway, yeah, I feel quite high doing this, I'm
That's
not,
good.
but I get that feeling, yeah. And I'm forgetting what I was saying too. So,
We're talking about what used to annoy you that doesn't annoy you anymore. I'm thinking about what you talk
right,
about with,
yeah,
with the asshole in
yeah. The fact
traffic,
that it's
the asshole in traffic.
yeah,
I mean, when that is like such a basic one that for the majority of people,
right.
when they're cut off in traffic, that is like something that really can aggravate them. But
No, I
after
don't
you've
have
been
any
through
response
self,
to that.
it's
Yeah,
just like happening. There's not any
yeah.
annoyance connected to it anymore.
I must say one thing that comes to mind with that one. You get you in Australia we have a learner permit
Mm,
period, and then a red P plate period, and then a green P plate period. So that people that have to display these P plates are only fairly recent drivers, but all the muglares are P plate drivers. Just about, the ones that want to overtake on double lines and do crazy things, and speed and whatever. They're often P plate drivers. Now, my social conditioning with my wife sitting beside me as this happens is, yeah, there goes another one. And that's interesting because it's not also not followed by, Vince, what did you just say?
yeah,
What just happened?
yeah.
It's just taken as that coat I put on when I'm with my wife.
Mm,
If I look back at it and investigate it, it is just a coat, and it is just put on. I don't for a moment, but I missed the opportunity
mm,
when it actually happened to experience that the mugler in me.
yeah. It's super interesting, that one with the code that you talk about, because if you would come with a comment like that when your wife sit next to you, because that is just how it is with that, constellation. But if it was me or Leona or Todd or Jeffrey sitting next to you, it wouldn't happen. Then it's super, super interesting, because then there's something, that needs, to be unpacked. There's still a lot of
Yeah,
unpacking to do, a lot of insights just lying and waiting for you. I love that.
yeah. I easily accept that there's a lot that could happen, but I also accept that it doesn't have to.
No, no,
Um,
no, no, no. It doesn't
yeah,
really matter. It doesn't really matter. That's the whole point.
but it's interesting. It's the most entertaining thing that I can find to work with to have in my life. Much better than some of the boring shit I watch on Netflix.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. The reality show that the ego and the selfing plays out for us is so much more interesting than it.
Oh
I completely
no,
agree.
I
Completely agree.
I can't even watch them at all. But we just get onto this TV series that's got these perfect American heroes, and there's not a fat person, not an old person anywhere in sight. Nobody shits or pisses. That just doesn't happen. it's, yeah. Anyway,
Amazing. The next fetter is the sixth fetter, and that is about that, subject object um perception. You talked a little bit about it before, where you said that you were walking and you had that feeling of breathing in the trees, and and everything was just, the whole perception of everything, and you were walking and the ground met your feet. And my question is actually about that I would like for you to talk more about how that experience of the interconnectedness has changed, because you also mentioned that with the grain of sand next to the dinosaur needed to happen for you and I to sit and have this conversation. So if you can expand or talk some more about that interconnectedness, I would love to hear about that.
It's a bit like the tinnitus. It takes a focus for it to become active, and the feeling is like compassion. It's very much a chest feeling, but a softening and an opening kind of feeling. The other stuff is thinking about it, and that produces a certain feeling as well. I'm frequently prone to pointing out the vivid color of a flower to my golf mates as we walk along. And the feeling of the vividness of that is something that I experience regularly. I don't know why, but I have a picture yesterday of when I was mowing and I picked up a stick, a bit of a twig off a tree that had fallen on the ground, and I was enthralled by the, I don't know what, the color, the shape, the form, there was something about it. It was like it was almost luminous in the color was extremely vivid, but it was brown, and it was more, I mean, it wasn't one color all along. It was different, where there were these little swelly bits at the end. But it was just a stick on the ground, and there was a whole lot of other sticks on the ground, and they got picked up and put in the bin, and then I mowed and so on, and I really enjoyed the nice clean surface of the grass, and it was I don't know what to say about that.
Well,
That's
it's
separateness. I can think about it, but
exactly.
I don't know what to say about it.
No, I completely understand. What I'm noticing with what you're saying is that completely natural aliveness that is in everything. That how I feel it about the sixth fetter is that it's not so much me recognizing things anymore. Normally, when you look at things, you don't see it. Just like when you read, you don't see it. You recognize the words. You don't read the words. And it's the same when you're going for a walk and you're out and about, or you pick up a cup. It's not that you see this is a cup and you really see what it is, or you're out and about and you're walking and you really see what it is. You just recognize what it is. But how the sixth fetter is for me now is that I see it, just like you say with the stick, that the stick was not just a stick, it was a luminous stick, and it had like, it wasn't just a stick. It had like nuts and it had bolts and the light and the shape was different, which made it a super unique and intimate experience, even though we're talking about a stick on the ground that goes straight into the bin. But it's just that aliveness that is with everything, that there's no longer that assumption about things being in a certain way. It's more a complete and utter awareness with what actually is, which makes everything very beautiful and very intimate and very much alive and very much present. You know, right now it's not artificial or in a copy paste way. You know, it's very much alive and
Yeah.
very much yeah.
That intimate. I like that word, intimate. It's extremely intimate. It's
Yeah.
it's so intimate that it's not different. It's just an extension.
Yeah.
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 But that probably doesn't help others to chase to chase that fetter.
Well, we to know. Well, we to know. It might be that people hear this
Yeah,
and go
yeah,
like,
that's
"Oh my
right.
God, the world is not
Exactly.
just
Yeah,
recognizable; it's actually alive and and
yeah,
and and constantly changing." Like holding a stick, even though
yeah,
it's a branch that is fallen off and it is dead, just holding it and you just feel that aliveness, even though that is because it is molecules moving all the time, and you can feel that energy and that
yeah.
aliveness in it. So nothing is static or ever staying the same. It's that complete constant change and aliveness in everything. And having that awareness when you are in the world, it just makes everything so much more vibrant and yeah, and alive and intimate. Because like you say, it's not only happening there, it's also happening here, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all happening here, I think.
Yeah.
But then that's a thought again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. Okay, the seventh fetter is about creating form of the formless. I usually say, you know, creating something out of nothing. So there's nothing there, and then we create it into something. That is that is kind of like the formless that is created into a form. It so that can be, you know,
Oh,
an assumption created
yeah,
into a belief, or it can be um past experiences created into a memory, created into the
yeah, yeah,
past,
yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
of that. So it's like all that has absolutely no shape whatsoever, that we kind of like compromise and make it into a form, even though it is absolutely nothing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
I never thought about it like this before, but yeah, I'm having a little epiphany now. One of the things that I have said in the past a couple of times is that if if I have to if I had to put a forward in the book of Vince's guiding and saying what is it that I actually do, I often come up with the idea that what I'm doing is I'm teaching the people the difference between what is actual and what is conceptual.
yes,
And I apologize for using the word teaching. I'm trying to help them to discover it. And guess what? When you just talked about that stuff, I suddenly saw that this was the people who take a concept to be something actual have
yes,
done exactly this.
yes.
This is what it's all about. And here I was getting a bit apprehensive because the numbers are getting up on these fetters, and I'm thinking, whoa, well, I'm not up there. And then, well, that was the way I came in, just about. Um, so, so it's as basic as the self that we think that we have. You know, we recognize in the end, we recognize that it's a whole lot of beliefs we've got about a character that we respond to, and so we think it's real. You know, but while we think it's real, it's a delusion. When we recognize that it's a delusion, it transforms into an illusion. It still appears that way, but we now recognize that it's not actually that way.
Yes.
So making a self a real controlling entity is giving form to the formless, isn't it? Is it? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's everything, because everything is like that. Everything is formless, and we're creating it into a form. And that
Right.
realizing that is happening all the time. We're creating something
Yeah.
into nothing into something, and making issues. It's like I mean, an argument can only happen because nothing is created into something, you know? So yeah, yeah. My question to you actually is about time, because time doesn't exist. Time is again something and nothing which we have created into a something, and then because our brain and our biology experiences thing linear, then we also think that time is linear. So my question to you is actually about that. It's about which experiences have you had regarding the illusion of time? And I don't know if it's just me, placing something on you and you haven't had any experiences about the illusion of time, but I actually think
Oh, I would
that
tell you.
yeah,
Yeah.
you mentioned it in a conversation, I think. Could you talk about that, please?
Okay, I don't remember what I said. Hmm.
You don't need to be fixated on this one. You can talk about
Yeah,
anything that is
yeah. No,
yeah.
it's hard to notice where to come in from, and things that arise in my mind. I frequently say to my golf buddies, and I never say it to myself, or maybe I do, but anyway, I say to them, the last hit, the one that you fucked up, has no bearing on the next one,
Absolutely true.
right?
Yeah.
It's just nothing, there's no connection whatsoever unless you make it so.
Yeah.
So if you can get all upset about the last one, well, it can carry through to the next one. But if you can let it go, it's just not connected at all. And it's like that with time. I feel no connection. I've been known to say that the Vince, whose name was spelt with a capital V before waking up, now feels to this Vince with the lowercase v, now feels like it was somebody else. I don't like, of course, my mind tells me it was still me, but these snippets of memory that I've got, but the feeling that comes up is, well, wow, that's not me. So if I come back into the present and the more recent past, so we have to play with these concepts in order
I
to
know, I
talk
know.
about them.
I heard it.
um, the feeling these days is more that there are characteristics to this story that are experienced pretty frequently, like daily or whatever. And I can, for example, I say I remember myself, but I don't. I'm picturing myself on the golf course, about to hit a ball, a drive, and I have no idea. I have no idea. I know what the intention is. I know the feeling, but I have no idea whether it's going to be a good one or a bad one or a mediocre one or what it is. No idea at all. And so this body does a thing. It swings a club and hits at a ball, and it might be a good one. It might be a bad one. It might be every single time. I have no idea what's going to happen. And there's a good feeling when it's a good one. And it varies. There can be a bit of disappointment if it's a bad one. but frequently there's not. Frequently there's just, okay, we'll have another go, you know, see what happens next time. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a degree, and it varies. It comes and goes in my daily life in various situations of treating. I do what's in front of me. I don't, you know, and I kind of, there's a bit of a game I play with myself. You know, I'm walking down to have a look at my bonsai down the back, and I walk past a pair of secateurs. So I go, okay, they need to be put away. So I'll pick the secateurs up, and as I'm walking to put them away, I come across a tree that needs a bit of a snip. So I'll do that, and I might not actually get to the point of putting the secateurs away before something else leads me off into some other place. But I do get things put away and done and so on. So, and I kind of enjoy that, letting life tell me what's next. And if I think about it, I can describe it as being in the present.
Yes, that description that you just had there is that flow. It's the ninth fetter. It's about the flow and the synchronicity that. And now when we're at it, I would like to ask the question. We can go back to the 8th in a second, because you talked a lot about it during our other meetings, where it's that sensation. It's especially with golf, that it's that sensation of just going with whatever. It's just like you just talked about with being in the garden, and then you have that flow experience of just moving with. So there's not a planning, and there's not a structure and a box. It's just that moving in and out of the experiences, and moving with whatever is alive. And my question is about, do you have any experiences with physical responses of being detached from emotional psychological identification as a body just doing or a body taking over? And in my notes I wrote in bracket golf, because I have heard you talk about that a lot of times, with that movement in and out when you talk about your golf.
Yeah. I mean, I can swing that club, and if it turns out well, whether it turns out to be a good one or not, I could then analyze. I was standing this way, and I was moving this way, and I was holding this way, and so on and so on. I don't do any of that. I don't analyze it. Occasionally, after a bad one, I might say to myself, "Oh, you were a bit distracted," or whatever about that one. But usually I don't, and usually it's just a case of that's what happened, and we'll see what the next one brings.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, because we have talked about that golf is great for that. Golf is great for the ninth fetter, because it is all about the experience that you have, and then leaving it and being in whatever flow it is. So the shot that, just like you said before, that the shot you just did has no relevance to the next shot.
Yeah.
Or to the game
I
in
say
total, or to the day, or how the day was, or anything.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I must say I don't proselytize these days, although I have been known to do that in the past. But another golf one with my golfing buddies, they hit a really good shot, and I'll say to them, "Show me you did that on purpose. I bet you can't do it again." Or I'd say, "You'd like to think you did that on purpose, don't you?" It's a great reflection on life. Golf, it is really, it is brilliant display.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to circle back to the eighth fetter. The eighth fetter is about the I am conceit. And you have actually talked about it back in the beginning where, what did I write it down? No, can't.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when I said it.
No,
What
but
did I say?
you talked about the thing with being with your friends where you had that feeling of you being the fortunate one, or you being the lucky one for really realizing that and having that, not having that connectedness with an I am feeling, which, because the eighth fetter is pair with the first fetter. So the first fetter is about non-identifying and about realizing that there is no self, and there's not even the separate self, and we can't even talk about not being a separate self, because that creates it into a self not being there. So the eighth
I understand.
the eighth fetter is more about it's much more subtle. It's that conceit that we can have about an I am, which completely falls away as well. So when you talk about
I don't think I'm being apologetic, but conceit's not quite the right word. But there is a little ego enhancement thing happening. I recognize that, but I also recognize that thoughts immediately arrive and say, of course, this is an illusion. This is nothing to do with actuality. But it still happens, even though it might be followed by that thought. So it is known that it is not actual, in spite of the fact that the logic is so convincing that I am better off than somebody who appears to be in fairly constant suffering mode.
My question to you is,
I recognize it's logic.
Yeah, sorry. But my question to you is actually, what did you used to be most conceited about?
Reverse conceit, I think, would be more accurate. As a kid with a low self-esteem in high school, etc., being a loner, I can remember just wanting to be close to a girl, any girl. And here's these handsome boys running around with a bevy of girls chasing them. And I came up with this thought. This is how I made myself feel better. I came up with this thought: you poor bugger, you're going to have an ego fight your whole life. You will never, ever, you'll probably end up committing suicide because you'll feel so bad because you'll never be able to stay as beautiful as you are now, or something along those lines. So that was conceit.
Very much.
So, but it was definitely a way of making myself feel better, because I felt like the outcast. But at that point, I was still wanting to be normal.
Yeah. But it's so funny, exactly that one, because we normally think of conceit being, having that overinflated ego that is like, overinflated ego. But the opposite is the same. The opposite of having low self-worth and having that grasping for people to like me and to appreciate me, and that's just as conceited, because why would you be so unique that people don't like you when they like everybody else? Why would you be so bloody unique that they don't like you? It's the same type of conceit, it's just with the minus in front of it instead.
Mm. Yeah, that was also at a time in our culture in Australia where my parents' generation was starting to lose the power they had to shape the next generation, and the next generation was rebelling to a degree, and we were starting to hear that we were all special. We had to be special. Teachers had to treat every kid like they were special, and so yeah.
Then we're at the last fetter, the 10th fetter, which is about ignorance. And I have two questions. One of them, because the ignorance is in the 10th fetter, is that when you that we tend to strive, and the seeking is all about, knowing and realizing and letting go, and when we reach the 10th fetter, we realize, well, I will forever be ignorant. I will forever. The life is full of things that I will never ever know, and I'm not supposed to know. And it gives you that that insight to humility is the wrong word, but it's that sense of it's completely impossible to be wise. I mean, you can be more skillful, but you can never be wise, and you can never be. You will forever be ignorant, and you will forever not know what things are actually about. And you said in the beginning, you said multiple times, where you realize that this is it, and for me, that is like the most clear way to express the 10th fetter. It is that realizing that this is it. This is it. There's nothing missing. There's nothing that needs to be any different. This is it. This is it.
It's a statement of the obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
How can it be anything other than what it is?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. But my question to you is actually, now that you know that you're never done and you will always be ignorant, how is that compared to how you thought it was going to be?
Oh, look, I have to. It's like I have to read out of somebody else's songbook back before this happened, so I'm constructing it almost as I say it. But of course, when I was chasing enlightenment, I went through stages of reading about the cities. I wanted the magic of it. I wanted the control. I wanted the ability to shape the world the way I wanted it to be, and so on. This is it. Beautifully encompasses the mundane as well as the extraordinary. It doesn't matter what this is. It's it. It's this. So but then if I analyze or examine what this is and step back and describe it, make it into a concept, I have to say that this is my interpretation of my perception. And you know what I mean when I say my, I mean this body's interpretation. Well, even that's not right, but okay. So there is an interpretation of a perception that is happening. and it can't be any other way. And luckily, I don't know quite how or why, but luckily, the spin on the ball that was Vince took me in this direction, and that direction was that the inability to be able to accurately conceive what is actual is so profound, is that it just, I'm out of words.
Yeah.
It's the liberation is the word I wanted to lead up to, but I kind of got lost going there. It's incredibly liberating to no longer have that rule book
Yes.
that this culture deemed as the appropriate one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also the realizing that what the rule book is trying to emphasize or to indicate is not even factual as well. The rule
No.
is not even real. I mean, the trying to conform into the rule book is not even real either. So it's that complete relinquishing into anything that could be other than what it is right now, and that what is right now, which means that there's nothing that is missing, and there's nothing that needs to be any different, and there can't even be. We talked about that also a while ago, where we talked about that, about preferences, that there can't even be a preference to anything, because that indicates that something else than what is could be possible, which it can't be. It is just as it is. So if it's a root canal that is happening, you can't even have a preference about the root canal not happening. If it's a beautiful smell of a flower, you can't even have a preference about anything else, because it isn't there. The only thing that is there is what is.
I want to lose some weight. I want to lose 10 kilos. I do.
Yeah. It's a great delusion, isn't it? It's such a great delusion. It's a brilliant. Yeah. It's such a great delusion. I mean, that is like that statement is just, yeah, it's beautiful, because it's kind of like summing up all the fetters into one. I want to lose 10 kilos, so it's the creating, because then I'm gonna be happy. So it's that creating something out of nothing, and a grasping for something, and an aversion to something else, and the I that wants to. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean, that statement
And
is,
of course, there's doubt that I'll ever achieve it.
there you go. It's like a complete sum up of all the fetters. It's like, I want to
Everything,
lose
yeah.
weight. It's just yeah, amazing.
And it even locks in time, doesn't it? Your
Yeah,
yesterday and today and tomorrow.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. This has been truly enjoyable, Vince. I've really, really enjoyed it.
I must say, I'm blown away every fortnightly meeting. After I send out the recordings, I get back messages from people who've watched it and just go, "Wow, that was so good! That was so good!"
Yeah.
And I think, wow, I'm just, it's such a great feeling that people can be getting good stuff out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And and for anybody watching, I cannot emphasize this enough. If you're not on Vince's list, and you're, because it's not only sending, well, I'm gonna write it in the comment section below, or in the description of the video below. I'm gonna write your email address. And it's not only that you have the opportunity to participate in Vince's Sunday meeting, it's also that if you're not participating, you get the link for the videos. You can watch it afterwards.
Yeah.
It's so useful. It's so useful, because I really think that we need to create that, and which you have done with the group. You have created that group of a very, very safe space with amazing people that have seen through self, and are so awake in so many areas of their life, and they are just sitting there as guides, and are supporting and helping and coming with insights to everybody that
Yeah.
sits and being so frustrated. It's absolutely beautiful what is happening in your meetings, and I'm recommending it to everyone.
And I heard this term called hive wisdom, and it applies to that group. You know,
It
that
really
group
is
together has a
a hive.
something that
Yeah,
none of us have individually. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's great.
yeah, yeah. It
It
is.
is
It
good.
really, really is.
We might have to go to weekly meetings if we get too many people. They're rolling in from you.
Good,
I've added about two yesterday, I think, and
good,
yeah, since last meeting, I've probably added about 5 or 6.
good,
So
good.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm really,
you've
really
got a big following. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. Really happy to hear, because I think that movement that is created right now, and that is happening right now, it's super important. And the best thing is that, oh, that is something that has never been there before, that there are actually people that want to help. You know, like you,
yes,
there are actually people out there that do want to help, that do want to guide, and whoever's sitting and watching this and maybe have started out and beginning to see the self illusion, um they don't need to feel lonely, and they don't need to feel that that this is something they're doing on their own, because
mm,
they're not. It's
mm,
a huge wave, and there's a massive amount of people that are just waiting to help and to support and to guide.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm really taken by people that go through the so-called gate, the gateless gate, frequently want to pay it forward.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And one guide I know, Stacy, always says, I'm trying to make the world a saner place, one person at a time.
yeah, exactly, exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
And she's popped about 3 through the gate in the last week.
In the week, that's
Wow,
amazing.
she's
Yeah,
yeah, amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
really, really is. Well, do you have anything to add? Um, Something you would like to say before we end? To
No,
people watching? No,
can't think of anything.
no. Otherwise,
Oh
otherwise you're gonna say it in your meetings. Yeah.
well. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording, and then I would like to talk to you afterwards. So thank you very
Okay.
much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for doing this. I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Good feelings here too. Yeah.
Good, good. I'm happy. I'm happy.